Coming up on today's Next Fan Up podcast.
Are you thinking all kind of like positive things, or are you thinking about all the things that can go wrong? Kind of what's going on underneath that man bun?
Although, I mean, if you want to drink wine while you're watching the game, I think that's perfectly fine too.
Oh.
I think you all are just missing out on some fine Middle Eastern cuisine. It was Greg, our Steelers fan, who first really flipped out about this. I don't know whether a chickpea killed his parents or something.
I don't want to shatter any dreams here, but the listeners have heard enough of Nick for this podcast, I tell you.
Super Bowl 54. Here we go.
That's how we start. Yeah, baby.
32 super fans.
Where do the reports come from? Did you get an initial?
One PodVader.
That's football.
Every angle of the NFL covered.
All that kind of stuff, I get it.
This,
no question about it,
is Next Fan Up.
We're going to unleash hell here in December.
Hello and welcome to the Blowout the Budget edition of the Next Fan Up podcast. Hello, everybody. Blowing out the budget because we've got a spread here full of hummus and flatbread. The perfect food to eat when you're getting ready for a What the heck? No. Of course not. I bring up hummus because we are blowing out the budget by bringing in another super fan. It happens to be our Kansas City Chiefs super fan, Nick, who admitted to our Slack group that his go-to food while watching football games is a big bowl of hummus. I'm sure you enjoy that with a nice Chianti too, right?
No. Although, I mean, if you want to drink wine while you're watching the game, I think that's perfectly fine too.
Oh.
I think you all are just missing out on some fine Middle Eastern cuisine. It was Greg, our Steelers fan, who first really flipped out about this. I don't know whether a chickpea killed his parents or something, but man, you guys give the hummus a try.
That's a tease.
It's like, chips and salsa are messy. You have to keep an eye on it. You always have a chance that chip's going to break in a weird way and you end up with salsa and chips all over you. Hummus, nice and clean, not going to drip.
Along with the man bud, I believe your man card needs to be turned in now. It's over. You can just pass it this way.
The notion is that I should, as a Kansas City Chiefs fan, I should be eating barbecue on game day. And by the way, I was responding to this mostly because I kind of took it more as like, rather than your Super Bowl spread, but kind of like, what do you eat on a normal, like while watching a normal game? I live in Brooklyn, man. Do you think I can get good KC barbecue up here? Like most of the attempts at barbecue around here are an insult to the art form, first of all. Second of all, I live in a Caribbean neighborhood, so if I really wanted to go barbecue, it'd be a spread like, I'd have some like jerk chicken, maybe some curry goat.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. And that would be good, but it also would be different than, the basic, boring stuff that all you guys are championing.
First of all, I love all the jerk food you just mentioned. Go get that stuff for Sunday.
That is James, our Eagle superfan. Neil would know all about eating goats and sheep stomachs there in Scotland.
Well, James mentioned it. There's a lot of jerks around here. It's strong start, guys. I've got to say, Nick's bringing the hummus. I'm bringing the humour, and James is bringing the humbug.
That's phenomenal. This is how we do it, ladies and gentlemen. This is how we do it. So,
oh my gosh.
We got a lot to get to and not a lot of time to do it, but we know you guys like the longer shows anyway, so who cares how long we go? Josh, one of those guys who loves the longer shows, reached out to us again, nextfanup@gmail.com, writing, I am back at 7-year-old karate. These kids know who is boss. That Seinfeld episode taught me nothing. There you go.
Good man, Josh. Good man.
You can also send us emails, nextfanup@gmail.com. You can also tweet us at NFU Podcast, facebook.com/NFU Podcast. So I'm going to throw it here to Nick and Charly, our 49er superfan. Let them go at it in their SuperFan Battle to start our preview of Super Bowl 54 between the San Francisco 49ers and Kansas City Chiefs. And I will...
Yeah. Jay, honestly, I'm more interested in if Josh had more in his email than this.
No, that was it. That was all.
Okay.
That's all Josh asked.
Oh my God.
Damn.
I know. I wish Josh had asked us about hummus. The proper way to prepare it. Do you put anything else in the hummus? I know some people like to mix things into the hummus.
It depends.
Well,
I mean, my wife will make it from scratch sometimes. I personally, anything that makes it a little bit spicier, throw in some crushed red pepper in there, a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of kind of chopped olives as well. Very nice.
You Americans probably, you're a bit thick, so you probably think hummus is just some Palestinian military organization.
No, not quite.
Okay.
But let's get down to a battle, a superfan battle here between Charly and our Indianapolis superfan Dan. No, that's just who Nick is impersonating, our Kansas City Chiefs superfan.
And now it is time for the big one, the superfan battle of all superfan battles. It is the Super Bowl. I am Nick, your Kansas City Chiefs superfan. I'm here with Charly, our San Francisco 49ers superfan, and we have made it all the way to the big dance. How are you doing, Charly?
Oh, I'm doing excellent. It feels great to finally be back in the Super Bowl. How does it feel to be in the Super Bowl, Nick?
Wild and unusual. The Chiefs have not been in the Super Bowl since, I think 28 years before I was born. And so, or something like that, maybe it was 18. I'm not good at math. Since the 1969 season. And so, as a Chiefs fan, I've seen them blunder plenty of times on their way here. It still feels pretty surreal. And one of the fun things about this matchup is, for one thing, I think it's two really good, really interesting teams. There's a lot to talk about. But there's actually, for an AFC team and an NFC team, there's no shortage of actually even just kind of interaction and kind of weird connections between these two teams. Like this time last year, it was around the time when the Chiefs traded Dee Ford, who had been a 5-year starter in Kansas City, to the 49ers, picking up a second-round pick, which helped them as part of their package to then grab Frank Clark to replace him. Frank Clark's a guy who's like an old friend of Joe Staley and the 49ers O-line, being in Seattle for so long. All sorts of other connections going back. And of course, all the different trades these two teams have had. The Chiefs have been basically running on a series of 49ers backup quarterbacks for the last 20 years. And so it feels like in weird ways, these two teams know each other a little bit. And, there's history here, and I don't know. It's going to be a really fun Super Bowl.
Yeah, absolutely. There for a little while, it was like 49ers Midwest with Bono, Montana, Alex Smith. So many Niners went through, and then what was it, the AJ Jenkins? You guys got that
Yep.
bestowment. We got Baldwin, I believe it was. So, yeah, lots of fun storylines between these two teams, and just cannot wait to watch the game. When I look at this, I really. It all, to me, comes down to the Niners running game. Are they going to be able to run like they have been? All the narrative right now is that the Niners only can run the ball, and that's their crutch. But at the same time, if you only have to turn around and hand the ball off, and you take that risk of throwing the ball, and you keep the clock moving, you keep Andy Reid and Mahomes off the field, that is a recipe for success. The Niners almost don't even need to establish the run, though, to start this game. And that's because of the film that they've put up with that almost 40 carries per game in the playoffs. They've been one of the best rushing teams all year. If they can run on the Chiefs, it will be all over. I don't think they're always going to be able to. So I want to get your opinion. How do the Chiefs stop the 49ers running game?
Well, and I think that's interesting. I mean, you're touching into a lot of the narratives I think have annoyed us both over the last few years. I mean, everyone seems to think that the Niners have run the ball a lot this season, but they're acting like there's never been a single game where Garoppolo's thrown it for more than 25 times. And in fact, Garoppolo has been a big part of this offense, obviously. But the Chiefs is interesting because
my overall point, though, on that same note, if they can run, they're just going to do that. They're not going to prove to anyone that Garoppolo has to get a stat line.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think what's interesting about that is that the Chiefs on paper, and if you look at their full regular season stats, have been a bad run defense. And now a lot of that was some bad games they put up early in the season. And in general, this defense has gotten like massively better towards the end of the season as opposed to the first half for a lot of reasons. But a big part of that is you look at some of the games where they realized where the run was really going to hurt them. And they happen to also be kind of outside zone schemes, similar to what San Francisco runs. Granted, like Shanahan's scheme is, so much more varied and complex than what a lot of these other teams do. But they were able to shut down like Dalvin Cook with the Vikings midseason. They shut down Derrick Henry just a couple of weeks ago in the AFC Championship game. And a lot of that wasn't so much that they were just like winning at the point of attack constantly. They were running heavier kind of run defensive lines where they basically run two nose tackles and Mike Pinnell and Derek Nottie. And their ends have been really good at just holding the edge. And they've allowed their linebackers, who are probably the weakness of the defense, but nonetheless, like when they have good, when they're allowed to just shoot a certain gap or have certain gap assignments and everything else is more or less held down, they've done well. But the biggest thing I think is that they've just eliminated big plays. The big thing with Derrick Henry, everyone thinks of him as being a grind out runner, but you look at a lot of his stats, it was basically he runs for 3 yards per carry most of the game, and then he breaks a 60-yarder every now and then. And that's what ends him up with having 8 yards per carry in some of these big games. And although he's an entirely different runner than what San Francisco puts out there, you have a lot of like smaller, speedier guys. The same concept sort of applies in that, not all of those are going to be, it's not like 4 or 5 yards per clip. It's, you're going to have some that get stuffed, but there's going to be some that are going to be huge, big chunk plays. And if the Chiefs can just continue the good tackling and some of the same things they've done in some of those other games where they're facing a major running attack, the safety's really good at tackling. Chiefs in general are a much better tackling team than the Packers were all season. And so I think that's just going to be the key. It's a lot harder if you're not getting big plays in the running game to sustain those longer drives. And I think it's really going to come down to possessions and who's going to get the more stops on defense and who's going to be able to score on a higher percentage of their drives on offense. And I actually kind of think that these defenses are closer than a lot of the kind of the national narrative expects, just because of how the Chiefs have been playing lately, even though they've had a lot of injuries. But that San Francisco front is nasty and is pretty scary with the front four that you guys can bring and the pressure you guys are bringing. I mean, I think from the Chiefs fan perspective, like a lot of Chiefs fans talk about, San Francisco basically runs a cover 3 all the time, but it's a lot more varied than that, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. The Niners have actually gotten into a whole lot of cover 4, and usually it's a pattern mesh type deal where they will show a zone look, and then if the man enters the zone, you play man within that zone, and so you're not going to a landmark for your cover 3. You are playing the man as if you were in man, and so they run that a lot. In fact, that really brings me to a question on that is, first I should start to talk about the front four. Yeah, that front four for the 49ers, nasty is really, it may not characterize it enough. You have DeForest Buckner, who you only have to look back to last season about how well he's played. Then you give him 2 ends to be able to come off the edge. D Ford, you know him very well. Then Nick Bosa, who has been just an absolute sensation. When you have older corners or unproven corners and not a very proven secondary like the Niners defense does, it sure does hide it when quarterbacks don't have much room. To get into that question, the Chiefs love to run a 3-by-1 formation. So where you have, your speedster Tyreek Hill over as the inside slot on the 3-side formation, and you have Travis Kelce split off as the 1 over to the other side of the formation. A lot of defenses, especially cover 3 defenses, really struggle with that. And I go back to your guys' game versus LA versus the Chargers, and the way Salah's old boss there, Gus Bradley, defended that was with the cover 4. And instead of being in that traditional cover 3, allowing Tyreek Hill to get over on the play side linebacker or even the offside linebacker and being able to get that deep crosser, and Mahomes can hit that all day. And with a guy like Hill, you don't need much time for that route to develop. So what Gus Bradley did is he went into cover 4. He was able to have that that safety be able to track that deep crosser, and the safety was able to get there in front and broke off a lot of that. So I expect the Niners to do that, but how often do the Chiefs run that formation? From what I was seeing, they ran it a lot. And do you think they're going to run any variations off of that deep crosser play to try to maybe enhance this chess match between Andy